up, so we will go ahead and get started this afternoon. Thank you all so much for tuning in and joining us. This is the May edition of the UTC Supply Chain Lunch and Learn, broadcasting to you remotely from East Ridge, Tennessee this afternoon. At least that's where I am. We're very, very appreciative to have you all joining us. It's an exciting Friday for us. We're very pleased to have several folks on the panel. I'm going to let Enrique introduce those in a little bit. But we're also excited about this particular Lunch and Learn because it is a collaborative event between the Center for Professional Education and the UT Center for Industrial Services. And with us this afternoon, I do see George Aislinger. George, is there anyone else from CIS on the call? I don't see anybody.
Brian Lane is going to be our...
Oh, yeah, Brian. Yeah, he's one of our speakers, though. I'm thinking more from the leadership team. Nope. Well, George, do you want to say a couple of things about CIS before we get started?
George Aislinger, UT Center for Industrial Services. I live in the Chattanooga area, have an office on the UT Chattanooga campus, and we work with manufacturing companies across the state of Tennessee. I represent 10 counties in the southeast corner, and our primary areas of focus are safety, quality systems, productivity kind of tools, Lean, Six Sigma, process improvement, leadership development. We have several other areas that we have availability through the university and other networks to assist companies. Right now, we're focused with this COVID going on, focused on surveying manufacturers. We're trying to contact 1,800 manufacturers in the state of Tennessee over the next 5 or 6 weeks. To assess the impact that COVID's had on their operations. It's been wide-ranging from totally shut down to companies who are booming because of COVID and a lot in between. But trying to understand that. And then we have some CARES funding where we can provide assistance in a way that I've been with UT 5 years. We have CARES funding where we can provide assistance at no cost for the next few months to a lot of different areas. And if you're in a manufacturing company, we'd love to hear from you and have an opportunity to help.
Thank you, George. If any of you want to get in touch with George afterwards, just let us know and I can connect you. And we are always very appreciative. We collaborate with CIS on a number of different things over the years, and we're very pleased to be able to connect with them in the supply chain arena. Megan King, I just saw you join the room. Are you on and can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can, yes ma'am. Well, would you like to say a little bit about CRMA and some of the things that CRMA is doing to support our local manufacturing right now?
Yes, for sure. So appreciate UTC and John and Enrique for coordinating this event, and for those of you who volunteered to be on today's panel, really appreciate that. So things definitely look a little different for us right now. What we're doing is really just kind of making sure we're sharing best practices of other manufacturers with other manufacturers during this time. I know that's kind of been the biggest request that I've seen from industry, is just wanting to know what other industry leaders are doing, so how we can best support that. So you've probably seen, if you're a manufacturer, you've probably seen quite a few surveys go out on either behalf of CRMA or of some of our partner organizations. So that's currently what we're really working on, and in the process of getting some more webinars related to our various committees, such as HR and all of that. We'll kick off hopefully June, July. That's what we plan to do as far as virtual training during the summer. And then we've tentatively rescheduled some of our bigger events, like our awards luncheon and golf tournament starting in August, and golf tournament in October. But again, that's very tentative, and we'll keep everyone up to date as to when we hope that, we can really confirm that those things will take place. But definitely do want to say, manufacturer, not manufacturer, if there's any way we can continue to support you or your organizations during this time, please reach out to me. Do not hesitate to contact us.
Thank you, Megan. And CRMA is always another valuable partnership in what we do to promote supply chain learning and education in our area. And so if any of you need to get in touch with Megan and don't have her contact information, just let us know. We'll be glad to connect you. All right, so you all signed in to learn about disruption in the supply chain. So I am going to hand it over to my supply chain and disruptive expert, supply chain expert for sure, Mr. Enrique Visoso. Enrique, it is all yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure we had talked about the disruptor piece being in the introductions, but glad at times to be able to provide and bring about some disruption. So we're going to be talking about supply chain disruption in a minute. There's a lot of things that are included in that. So we're going to narrow down to 3 specific topics. But let me first introduce our speakers or our panelists and the companies they're representing. Luke Dillefeld, he leads the Sanofi Chattanooga campus for health, safety, and environment and manufacturing excellence, focusing on building a health, safety, and environment culture, and also enabling a continuous improvement environment. He is currently leading the HSE preparedness and response to the COVID-19 pandemic for the site. Sanofi is a global pharmaceutical company, specifically here in Chattanooga. You may remember them formerly being known as Chatham. Manufacture and they use a variety of contract manufacturers to provide a large number of over-the-counter personal health products. Brian Lane, he is the safety and health specialist for UTCIS and manages the Southeastern OSHA Training Institute Education Center in Tennessee. He provides a large number of training offerings and audit services for companies all over the state of Tennessee. George already gave you a little bit of an introduction on UT Central Industrial Services. Matthew Williams, he is supply chain manager for Southern Champion Tray. He oversees distribution and transportation operations. Southern Champion Tray is a leader of paperboard packaging products with a wide range of applications in the food industry. They use innovation to provide product differentiation in custom packaging solutions. We're going to hear actually today one innovative product that they did in collaboration with Hamilton Plastics. And Guru Shah. Guru is the CEO of Shaw Trucking and Logistics. He is also the business manager for Hamilton Plastics. He's a local entrepreneur that started Shaw Trucking in 2014. Shaw Trucking is a for-hire transportation provider using fuel-efficient trucks and a great group of experienced drivers to provide excellent service to their customers. Hamilton Plastics manufactures industrial and food bag and film products using innovation and technology to serve their customers. So a great group of panelists with diverse really perspectives that we're going to really diving in. As I said, the three sections of our conversation we're going to have today. One is, how has the COVID-19 affected your business? So that's just to really give us a perspective and a baseline of what's been going on with these companies. Then we're going to move to, what opportunities have you found in this environment, in this crisis? And the third subject will be, in this new normal that we're all having to deal with in manufacturing and distribution operations, what have you done? What will you be doing to provide a safe workplace for your employees? Okay, so those will be the 3 sections we're going to talk about. For questions, if you have questions, we're going to give you a couple of options. We'll probably reserve or hold questions to the end after we've kind of gone through the conversation. You can use a dialogue box to type in the question. Sometimes questions are kind of difficult to capture in a little bit of dialogue box. So you can also use the symbols to raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and John and Jeff will be managing and open the microphone to allow you to ask the question live. I may make it a little easier for you to express specifics of the question you want to deal with. So that said, let's dive in on our first topic. You know, this crisis have affected businesses in many number of ways. For some, the level of activity has dropped significantly. For others, it's just gone out the roof. It's affected the flow of goods. Suppliers, maybe some offshore suppliers, has been affected. The ability to serve the customers have also been significantly impacted. And leveraging that with business profitability has got to become a very challenging environment. So, Guru, maybe to start with you, giving you the perspective for Shaw Trucking as well as Hamilton Plastics, tell us a little bit about how this crisis has been affecting your businesses.
Absolutely. For us, coming from the manufacturing perspective as well as the distribution, trucking, and brokerage space, one thing's for sure is that as soon as this started, it affected supply chain at every single point of the supply chain. Personally, for us, we are in the process, thankfully, of receiving containers from Italy for a new machine at Hamilton Plastics. And when this all started, me and my dad, and actually my wife and my baby, were in New York en route to Milan, Italy to test the machine. Literally the day before the news came out that they called this a pandemic and Milan, Italy was experiencing the biggest outbreak outside of China. We canceled our trip. We came back home. And from that point on, it felt like kind of just a very measured and a very controlled chaos at our facility, trying to figure out, are we going to get the machine? How are we going to do testing? When is this going to end? How is this going to affect import and export and all of that? And it kind of really jump-started our preparation process. We kind of tried to utilize all of our resources of the city, the World Health Organization, CDC, put all our brains together, and we just tried to do everything like we do in a methodic way, crawl, walk, run. Started out with trying to source thermometers, trying to source PPE, tried to figure out the best ways to manage our folks. In terms of sort of the trucking side, that gets difficult as well, because these guys are all over the country in a variety of facilities, cities. Some cities like New York have it way worse than we do here in Chattanooga, and we're bringing that in and out of our facility, and how we went about that what was interesting. And lastly, kind of the scale of how a trucking brokerage can take advantage of this situation, and a trucking company is at the mercy of the industry, was pretty interesting to see as well. We noticed at Hamilton Plastics a lot of the dynamics, since we are in the food industry, poultry. We're involved with carpet industry as well. We kind of saw all of a sudden our tortilla bag business skyrocket when people started hoarding at the grocery stores, and we saw poultry recently take a decline as you've seen some of these plants close down. So it's been a very eye-opening perspective, and our way of handling it is taking it second by second and day by day, and being as careful as we possibly can.
Very good. Hey, Luke, tell us a little bit, Sanofi and the wide range of products that you guys have and distributing, really products nationwide. What has been the impact for Sanofi?
Sure. So locally for our site, back in March, when kind of the pandemic was officially announced, we saw about a 30% increase in oversales. So we saw this like pull forward in the market, and all these people kind of this hoarding behavior, which, created a ripple effect throughout the business. Year over year, our growth sales are up about 2%. I think it's really positive. But like I said, it does create some complexity, some challenges to be able to manufacture the product and distribute it and get it to market. We've seen an increase in e-commerce. Everybody's shifting to this digital world. Our habits are going out of stores and onto the online environment. So we're trying to fulfill that as well and grow the business with e-commerce. We've seen increases in personal care, specifically our mouthwash act and in Gold Bond lotion. And we believe that's due to people washing their hands more frequently, right? So their hands are drying out and they need lotion to rehydrate their hands. So that's been a positive for the business. And then on the other side, allergy. Allergy and pain have both been big categories and drivers of growth for the site. So people using allergy medicines to suppress symptoms and treat symptoms, help them be more effective, as well as our pain in icy hot Asper cream. We've seen the biggest impact in those three categories.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Luke. And Matthew, Southern Champion Tray, you got really, you serve some sectors that have almost pretty much shut down when you look at a lot of the retail and the institutional
Yes.
business. Tell us a little bit about what it's been like for Southern Champion Tray.
Yeah. Well, it's had a dramatic impact on our business. As you mentioned, we're heavily invested in food service distribution. So with schools and universities and restaurants and sports leagues canceled or postponed, it's really impacted us greatly. I'd say from a low point of about 4 weeks ago where our business had declined by 50+%. Fortunately, what we've seen over the last couple of weeks is a good rebuild and things are starting to come back online, but it's had a tremendous impact on us. We have another plant in Mansfield, Texas, that is more focused on the retail side and doing custom work. So as people have started going to the grocery store and grocery stores business is up, that plant has done extremely well. But for our plant here in Chattanooga, based more on the food service distribution side, it's had, like I said, it's had a dramatic impact.
Yeah. So, Matthew, as you're talking about some of these impacts, when you're looking at a diverse range of businesses, crises always bring about opportunities. I want us to talk about opportunities in two separate aspects. Crisis tends to knock us out of the box, and we have to think outside of the box. Crisis also sometimes things that seemed important are no longer important. It resets our priorities. And certainly for some of you in the marketplace and the demand for medical essential items, you've ended up producing some of those. The other side of the opportunity is away from that aspect of essentials, is you start thinking about new ways, efficient ways, use of technology that is somewhat unrelated to the crisis, but that it becomes really more necessary for you to become more efficient. So those two sides of opportunities, Matthew, tell us a little bit within Southern Champion Tray, and I know one of your ventures has been with Hamilton Plastics. Yeah. What opportunities have you guys found within all this crazy crisis world?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm glad you brought it up. Obviously, there's been some silver linings in this, and we have learned so much. And I think one of the things that I've kind of learned through this, if we go back 100% to exactly what we did prior to the virus, we'll have missed an opportunity. So there's been a lot of learning through this. One of the things that came out of it for us, recognizing the need that healthcare providers had, we're able to work on and develop a face shield. And hopefully if everybody can see it, I'm going to hold it up here. You can take a look at that. Made out of paperboard, and it's disposable, so when I put it on, this kind of fits just like that. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Now, this has been very exciting. Quite honestly, the intent behind that in doing it was just to help out here locally. We have given away in excess of 150,000 of these. We set up a website where people can contact us if they need these. And then we've set up distribution days here at our plant on Thursdays and people can just come by and we will safely just give you whatever you need. Now we're selling it now as well. It's out in distribution and it's starting to catch on. But it really, the intent of this initially was just some way we could give back. We had capacity in the plant to run it, and so it just seemed to make sense. And Guru was a big help with it. We don't have the ability to cut down the film to the exact size we needed for this, so they assisted us in that part of it. So it was just really a neat collaboration.
You know, before we go to Guru, Matthew, some thoughts you mentioned about not going back to the way we were before. Do you have some examples of what are some of those things that you guys as the leadership team has challenged and said, you know, we can move forward and be a better supplier, take better care of our customers?
Yeah, there's several things. A lot of them we were able to enhance some of our systems capabilities, and we were able to accelerate those things beyond what we were capable of doing just back during normal work time. I think there was a sense of urgency around certain things. A couple of specific areas that we were able to improve on is how we load plan. We also run a private fleet, so how we load plan for our fleet every week and how we dispatch them has improved immensely since all this started. How we bill our customers has improved immensely since all this started. And in both cases, we've moved from processes that were somewhat dependent on paper to be totally not dependent on paper. So those are two significant areas that we will continue with once this passes.
Good lessons learned. Guru, interesting the coming in of Hamilton Plastics in collaboration with Southern Champion Tray. Was that an existing relationship? And maybe as you comment on that, also talk a little bit about some of the opportunities that Shaw Trucking and Hamilton Plastics have found in the middle of this environment.
Absolutely. I mean, first things first, yeah, Southern Champion Tray has been, they're right across the street from us, and they've been a big part of, we've collaborated for a long time. In fact, Matthew, I think of as a bit of a mentor in the logistics and supply chain space. He's the expert, and he's always offered an immense amount of advice to me coming from the outside into trucking and logistics, and we've valued that for a long time. When COVID hit, I saw a lot of people's brains get excited in terms of, oh, I get to use that engineering part of my brain, and I get to be innovative, and I get to be trying to finding a solution to something that really matters and can make an immediate impact. And when that happens, exciting things happen. Tom Berenger on our team, my dad, myself, immediately got together with Southern Champion Tray and also another little company here on Amnicola that happens to make putting greens. And it was a slow process to figure it all out, but we kind of tried this. Oh, that doesn't work. Let's try this. That doesn't work. But the putting green guy said, I've got a die cutter. You guys have got plastic. We've got foam. We started there. That didn't work. Foam caused sweat. Our plastic didn't have a high enough clarity. We were working directly with Erlanger. Southern Champion Tray was already working on some stuff. And kind of when you put all the powers together, it ends up with something pretty special. And that was very fun to watch, very fun to see. Hopefully it leads to further collaboration moving forward and further communication amongst industries you'd never think to come up with more products in the future. So absolutely, that's been a great partnership.
That aspect of collaboration that through organizations like CRMA, obviously UTCIS can connect the dots between companies. It really teaches us that, at times we try to find answers all on our own, and that sometimes we can look at partner industries. I know sometimes competition kind of gets in the way because we don't want to be collaborating with our competitors, but really with other industries, the ability to come and bring about solutions that otherwise on our own may be difficult. So Guru, some other ways, other thoughts around really on either the transportation or the manufacturing side of the business, other changes in mindset, changes in thinking that you guys have thought or have implemented to really be able to allow you better take care of your customers?
Absolutely. We have taken this as an opportunity to really look at the nuts and bolts of the way we do things. Anyone that's in trucking or supply chain or logistics will tell you that there's not really a break ever to sit back and say, oh, it's the smartest way. Like Matthew kind of spoke to moving paper to electronic. For us, one of the silver linings has been that we've persevered. We've utilized our expertise from our drivers, from our fleet planner and manager, to our relationship with Hamilton Plastics and other vendors to persevere through this. But we get more calls right now for drivers, veteran drivers looking for positions than ever before. We've taken the opportunity to grow our fleet. Other folks in the industry that maybe were reliant upon, say, various other manufacturers that are not thriving in this market, if that was their biggest customer, they've been forced to furlough a lot of drivers. And we've taken it as an opportunity to increase our fleet by almost 20% right now, putting them in leased equipment for the time being, and working on growing our fleet in that regard. On the logistics side, we have been in communication with the food bank and other nonprofits that we've had previous relationships with to try and assist there. I think the biggest thing that we've seen out of all of this in terms of changes that will persist moving forward are, this thing's not going away. Everyone's kind of all hands on deck. We've got maintenance guys going through every hour and using a bleach solution to kind of clean all of our light switches and doorknobs. We've got folks cooking food and bringing it in a safe manner so that people don't have to feel pressured to go out and eat or anything like that. And it's been a very interesting thing to see, and we'll see how it plays out as this thing goes.
And Guru, part of what you mentioned, a lot of these crises, as we work together, it really strengthens our team and our reliance on each other and working and supporting each other, having each other's back. So I'm sure this is helping your team get closer together and develop a greater sense of not only loyalty to the company, to the customers, but also to each other as they work together. Good story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Luke, tell us a little bit about then what have been the opportunities for Sanofi, and curious also because I've heard a number of you guys have been working remotely. How has that worked? Good, bad, ongoing practice, or everybody kind of go back to the office as soon as you can?
Sure. So when this, kind of pandemic hit, we took a look at our operations and, decided where we could implement a work from home strategy. So currently there's about, it's a little over around 150 employees that are in a work from home environment now. And they've been so for, I think this is going on 9 weeks now. So, we were forced to this digital transition. We utilize Zoom a lot. We've converted our Plus QDCI kind of performance management daily meetings into this digital format as well to help us continue to monitor KPIs, identify problems and identify owners and actions to solve those problems. So really excited about where we've gone over the last, 9 weeks in this digital format. Matthew mentioned the reduction of paper processes. We've seen a tremendous impact in the reduction of paper processes and wet signature requirements. So now we're utilizing digital signatures, digital routing, to whereas we traditionally used, interoffice mail. So I can see the work from home environment continuing. Sanofi right now, they're working on a return to work plan, but it's very gradual. It's very phased in. And we're looking at targeting employees that may not be as fully productive as home as they would be in the office. And in that environment, we look at implementing, A teams and B teams, and keep the density in our office areas and our office spaces low to reduce the risk of transmission. So more to come there, but I can see this, playing out, like Guru said, for a while. So we're in it for the long haul, and I think overall the transition's been positive.
Yeah. Follow up on a couple of things, Luke. First, on the hand sanitizer, so is Sanofi going to add that to the regular product line?
Yeah, so we got my little product demo here. We, in mid-April, produced, over, 100,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, 4-ounce bottles, for donation. For employees, we donated to every major hospital in the area. And then we also donated to the hardest hit areas up in the East Coast, where many of our Sanofi sister sites are at. So produced it in 55-gallon drums for them, they could dispense it at those sites. And then locally, we produced it in the small bottles. We also donated to local first responders for, police, fire, EMS, tornado disaster relief through the Red Cross. And I think overall it was a true rallying cry for the site. So many people involved, many people working on weekends, extra hours, a lot of dedication to get this through. And I think the real unique thing here on this is we utilized the FDA approved formula, which didn't require stability requirements. So we were able to put this out very quickly using their approved formula, their approved labeling, to get it in the hands of people that needed it. And yeah, it actually has created more innovation and more ideas. So this is not for sale, but we're exploring, hand sanitizer options within the Gold Bond line to launch here this year. So, silver lining opportunities, and we're capitalizing on those.
Yeah, a lot of us are going to be using a lot more hand sanitizer going forward. Hey, I did want to ask you before we go to our third subject, which is the one that I want us to spend more time and get a lot more of the specifics around workplace safety. But before we go there, you mentioned about the working remotely. I've read different companies, either they're realizing that, we've got a group of employees that can work remotely, and that will save us some space because we don't have to continue to invest in buildings. And the other side of it is, although it could have an adverse effect on the travel industry, is, we used to have employees that for all these meetings, they would travel. And we've kind of proven the model that maybe we don't need to travel as much, and we can do more online-based meetings that, have people waste a lot less time in travel. Although you can never replace that face-to-face contact, so I'm sure you'd have to be cautious with that. But what have you heard? What are the rumbles within Sanofi around ongoing online remote relationships and working?
Sure. So Sanofi, prior to the pandemic, they had a work from home policy already in place. So, people leveraged and utilized that as much as they could to limit the amount of travel. Zoom meetings were still kind of preferred. Obviously, there was face-to-face travel, international travel, being an international company. But it's business as usual for us now. We just had a strategic plan session with the GBU last week. The entire GBU for the business unit was on a Zoom call, and we presented the plan. So no different than being in a conference room in France, other than the time zone difference. So I see this continuing going forward. I think I see it as an opportunity for Sanofi to save a lot of money, reduce the environmental impact of the CO2 emissions.
Yep. Yeah, very good. So let's go to the third subject. And Brian, let me bring you in. This challenge of the new normal and how do we provide a safe workplace? A lot of people are concerned about getting out and about, getting in close contact with other people. It's a tough challenge because you want to provide a safe workplace, and I think the companies that you guys work with have already been doing some things and will be doing other things. But before we go to the company examples, Brian, give us the regulatory perspective, your expertise within OSHA and TOSHA, with regards to, what resources are out there, what can companies use to get some guidance around what are good practices, what processes and requirements they need to be mindful of. Would you mind sharing us a little bit of that perspective as we look at maintaining and providing a safe workplace?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you for letting me be part of this. It's been very informative to hear all of these very knowledgeable and successful people share their stories, and I appreciate you letting me be a part of that. I think the one main resource I would guide people to, at least to start with, is the OSHA website, www.osha.gov. And if you go to that website, the first thing that you'll see when you get there is a click box that will pop up, more information on the coronavirus. And one of the things that I think is the scariest about this whole thing is the knowledge about it is still ongoing. And back in February, I was doing an OSHA seminar class with a warehouse distributor in Middle Tennessee. And the guys in the class were concerned because they were getting containers from China. And the news was just hitting the United States then about this problem. And they said, can we catch the coronavirus from these packages from China? I said, I don't know. But I went to the Centers for Disease Control website and submitted a message to them, and they responded. And on February 12th, they said, we don't know. We don't think it'll be a problem. We think it probably won't live for days. And now, in May, they're now saying that this can live on surfaces for up to 5 days. So the OSHA website, where I'll go back to that, if you click on that, learn more, if you go to that second page, one of the things that you'll see is a guidance on preparing workplaces for COVID-19. They put that out at the end of March, but there's a news and update section as well, where they're literally updating that sometimes every day. And they just put out a one-pager recently on 7 steps to put on an N95 respirator correctly. And if you all have gone out to the stores, you've seen people wearing the respirators over their chin, which is really good if you're trying to protect your chin, maybe not so much if you're trying to protect yourself from other things. They put out other one-pagers on 10 steps and so forth. But that OSHA website is where I would encourage people to go. Also the cdc.gov, and then the EPA, they have a list as in November, and that's all of the disinfectants that they have shown would be effective for the COVID-19 virus.
Brian, as you mentioned, disinfectants, and there's some things that people have to be very mindful and careful about when you start changing processes and adding a lot of chemicals in your site. I mean, what's the guidance on that?
Okay, Enrique, that was a beautiful question, and thank you for asking me that, because one of the things that I'm concerned about as a safety and health person, and this is a little bit of a sidetrack, forgive me, but there's something out there called ISO 45001, which is a new occupational health and safety management system. And one of the things I like about that is they have a requirement in there for management of change. And it's this ideology or this ideal that when you make changes, for every action, there's a reaction. And so when you put people in N95 respirators, that's a respirator. I mean, there are OSHA requirements related to that. And when you start bringing in new disinfectants, new chemicals, that falls under hazard communication or HAZCOM. There are requirements for training, labeling, etc. But again, the PPE, the gloves, the face shields, the respirators, all of those things that you put people in, there are, from an OSHA standard standpoint, there are at least training requirements that go with those, as well as from an employer standpoint, making sure that the equipment is adequate, maintained properly, et cetera. And then even getting rid of the stuff, if you've got a suspected COVID case and you clean up and so forth, an area where that person has been known to be, OSHA's saying you're supposed to treat that stuff like a biohazard waste. And so bloodborne pathogens even comes into play, even though this COVID-19 is not a bloodborne pathogen, it's respiratory illness. But that's another place where the OSHA standards could come into play, is in the disposal of this as well.
Yeah. And a good reminder is we have to do things quickly to protect employee safety, but at the same time, we have to be very mindful of change management. And I think we can see those regulatory processes and see those not necessarily as obstacles and problems, but tools to enable us to make changes effectively and quickly. So Matthew, as we talk about safe workplace, Southern Champion Trail, you guys have a large space, lots of employees, multiple shifts. Tell us a little bit about what have you guys been doing and will be doing to really be able to provide that safe workplace?
Yeah, okay, great. Well, I'll tell you, it hadn't been without challenges, and we learn every day. We have a large part of our office staff is working from home, but everything within our manufacturing environment has changed. So I'll just give you a few quick examples of things that we have implemented since all of this started. We've color-coded our plant so that folks that work in the plant stay in certain areas of the plant consistently. Those folks also have assigned bathroom where all of those folks would, in whatever color code you're in, you'd have a corresponding color-coded bathroom. There's hand sanitizing stations between all the various zones. So if you were to pass from one zone to the other zone, then you would sanitize your hands before you go into the next zone. We've changed simple things such as changing our lunch hours and staggering our lunch times in order to create separation in our break room. We've taken office space that was used in the past as meeting rooms and set that up as additional lunch space in order to have plenty of social distancing space. We've changed the way that people clock in, avoiding congestion at the time clock and staggering start and stop times. When you clock in the morning, you're automatically clocked out now at the end of your shift. There's no hand touching of the clocks. So just those are a few of the things, but I would tell you, Enrique, everything is different. And a lot of those things too will continue once this is over. But it has been, it's been a challenge, but just have learned so much through the process. Brian said we've used all the resources available, including OSHA, CDC, and our own BRC standards. So lots of changes.
All of these things, and I know it may be too early to tell, but impact on efficiency, do you think some of these things are going to help improve efficiency, others maybe not? What have you observed so far around the impact to efficiency in your operations?
We've seen it work both ways. Obviously, the way we're coming to work and the way we're leaving work has improved. We've a lot of congestion that would typically form around time clocks and all of that's been eliminated. Physically, right out on the plant floor, quite honestly, we've probably lost some efficiency just in the way that we're running machines and scheduling time out there in order to create separation. Some of our machines are close together, so we wouldn't run two machines that are back to back at the same time in order to create the appropriate separation that we need. So I'd say we've seen a little bit of both.
Okay. So Luke, when we look at Sanofi and how you've been working to provide a safe workplace, what are some of the things that Sanofi has been doing?
Well, very similar to what Matthew's done at Southern Champion, social distancing, staggering shift starts, staggering time in the locker room, reducing the amount of chairs available in break rooms and staggering lunch and break times. We've also implemented, so everybody is in surgical masks now. That is a requirement. So as you enter the site, you're given a mask to start your shift, and then you've got a supplemental mask that you have given to you after your lunch. We do temperature scanning, so we have both the handheld and the camera digital scans in place, as well as we've got 6 screening questions that every employee is asked upon entry. So, screening everybody to come in, really reinforcing, good hand hygiene, teaching people how to wash hands, sanitizer stations everywhere. And that was typical because of CGMP and maintaining, CGMP compliance. We, asking people to stay home if they're sick or they're feeling sick. Sanofi has been great. They've implemented some changes in policy to where if an employee is high risk or they have high risk family members, they can stay home and receive full pay and full benefits. So we do have employees utilizing that benefit policy. We're also offering incentive pay for those business critical employees that are here on site. And if you're working through the pandemic, you do get a rate increase. So a lot of good things that have been done by Sanofi North America as well as the site to help keep us safe and motivated during the pandemic.
Okay. Guru, as we look at both Hamilton's Plastics and Shaw Trucking, also I know you guys have multiple shifts, so you have to deal with shift changes and people using the same equipment. What are some of the things that you guys have been doing to provide a safe workplace?
Without being too repetitive, we followed a lot of the same practices that Sanofi and Southern Champion and these other folks have done as well. We have invested in thermometers, we've invested in masks, we've invested in gloves. We do take the temperature multiple times per shift. We do sanitize all surfaces multiple times per day using a bleach solution. We're thankful that within our office, we're set up in such a way that everybody in our office in terms of management customer service has their own office with a door. That has been very helpful with not having to deal with very much cross-contamination. That being said, it's dynamic day by day. So at the beginning of this, we had people coming in. Then as numbers started increasing, we staggered schedules. There was a time on the trucking side where I had 3 people on that side of the office. I made sure that basically 2 were at home, 1 was in, and we staggered it that way so that there's only 1 person in the office at one time. But it allowed our drivers to have a point of communication when needed, as needed in terms of face-to-face. I think something that we haven't talked about much either is that 2020's had all kinds of things, both COVID related and not, or COVID adjacent. So childcare has become a thing that has become a major point of communication in terms of, hey man, I don't necessarily feel like I have to work from home, but all my kids are home and my wife's home, and we don't have the resources for a nanny or anything like that. So we've had to come up with plans early on where we have, kids areas that we're having to maintain and sanitize as well, and deal with that. And then on top of that, we've also had this tornado come through during this as well, which has caused some of our folks to be affected in terms of their cars being totaled and homes being wrecked. And it's been a time where we've had to really put our thinking hat on in a lot of different ways. But kind of these baseline things that Brian spoke to as well, immediate resources of OSHA, World Health Organization, CDC, EPA, are great resources on the front line. And then overall, I would say the biggest thing is preaching that everyone hold each other accountable, because we all have an inner child that wants to rebel and doesn't want to wear the mask when your glasses are fogging up, or when it's bothering your ears, or, I just put these gloves on and I touch that. Do I have to switch them? It really is a matter of holding each other accountable and being safe and understanding that, it's for the greater good. So that's been a lot of the things that we've been toying with and dealing with, but it does change every day for sure.
Yeah, and how do you, I think a couple of you have mentioned dealing with employee benefits, and when you deal with people that are sick, there's usually the pressure to go to work to get paid, because otherwise you can't put food on the table. What are your thoughts around what's going to happen with some in the area of employee benefits?
Well, like Luke said, some of the things that we've done here, Enrique, absolutely encouraging our folks that are ill not to come to work, and anybody that's home or has somebody under the same roof with them that is ill, encouraging them not to come to work, and also maintaining their full pay. It'll be interesting to see how this all transpires going forward. We had also suspended our attendance policy. So we just didn't want to create any mixed message. If people were ill, we wanted those people to make sure that they stayed home, and we're here as soon as they get back to good health.
Okay. Hey, with that, I think let's go to questions. Seems like we may have some questions, John. Do we have some questions, or need to open the mic for some of the participants?
We do have some questions. Hold on one second. Carla, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question.
Oh. Hi, Guru, you were just talking about holding each other accountable, and how do you hold each other accountable for things that need to get done with all those other contingencies that are flying around?
Absolutely. So, some examples are really, they lie in the fact that I've said this a lot to friends and family and folks around the office, that it's very much not a partisan matter. It's not something that, the line is that you're caring for yourself and your family at the end of the day. And if, say, you're sitting in the lunchroom in your small group and there's a guy complaining that he's feeling short of breath or he's not feeling so well, we've had examples where the rest of the lunchroom's like, you need to go home. It might not make it to the supervisor or lead man or even myself until after the fact, until I walk through and we just want to let you know this happened. He wasn't feeling well. And then we keep in contact with those people. But it's one of those things where, you do it respectfully. You do it in a way that you want to let the other person know that you care about not only them, but everybody. And if you don't feel well, go home. It's not going to affect your job. It's not going to affect your pay. That, echoing the sentiment of these other guys, that there's no repercussions for being extra safe. And for us, that comes top down from my dad to me to Tom to anybody else. If you, it's cliche, but if you see something, say something, and we follow that simple guideline, and that's been effective for us.
So you've really engaged the whole community in that system.
Yes, very much so.
Carla also mentioned that the chamber has released a list of PPE businesses that are sourcing or providing and distributing PPE. So if anybody wants that, I got that yesterday. So happy to share that. Bob Jackson, you also had a question, so I'm going to unmute you.
So I work with John at UTC, and I'm just curious, have you seen these skill sets from your employees who are university graduates, or those that your skill sets you're looking for, that we could help encourage in our undergrads or or graduate students to help keep businesses in Chattanooga afloat during these tough times?
It's a great question. I'll just, I think one of the key things during this time, we place a high value on servant leadership and just having folks that are relational. This has taken a lot of conversation with our team members to make sure that we're all on the same page. So we've got a lot of smart people, and it's also great to have a lot of relational people that work well. One of the things that I've taken away from this time is that we have been able to make decisions much more quickly than would typically be the norm. And so just the relational aspect of what's happened has been pretty significant.
What's allowed you to make decisions more quickly?
I think just the sense of urgency has been a big driver in that. And we haven't had a lot of time to sit around and think about this. It has, a lot of these decisions have required immediate action.
Anyone else with a question for today's panelist?
Anything else, John?
I thought I heard somebody talking, but I think it was background noise. Any other questions today? All right. I don't think so, Enrique, so I'll let you wrap us up.
Well, hey, first, Brian, Matthew, Luke, Guru, thank you very much for sharing some of your experiences, being transparent, vulnerable at times, and admitting some of the things that you've had to learn and gone through. Thank you to our participants for logging on and participating in our webinar. I'll just putting out there that we do this every month. Our next event will be on June 12th. We are going to look at this crisis from a slightly different perspective, that one of very specific on transportation. And what has this crisis done on transportation capacity, availability, ability to serve customers? And we're going to engage both, listen to the shipper side and what's been the shipper experience, what is the provider, and how they're working together, collaborating to, you've heard a lot about rates and cost issues. Matthew mentioned and Guru mentioned around the availability of drivers and what's happened to small companies. So having really that conversation on capacity, managing relationships between shippers and transportation. So that will be June 12th. You'll hear more from through the promotions through both UTC as well as CRMA. So thank you very much for today. Stay safe. Out of a crisis, really, we've heard the subject today, good things come out of it. We have to be conscious and sensitive to a lot of the suffering really that many families have had, but we also have to be able to make the best and be able to provide better and improved services. So wish you best in your endeavors. Thank you for this time and have a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.